Administrator Lorka Pax shuffled through the holographic reports floating above her desk, her four upper appendages working in perfect harmony, while her lower limbs remained crossed in what her species considered the universal posture of frustration. The soft blue glow of the displays reflected off her iridescent scales as she sighed, a habit she'd picked up from watching too many interspecies diplomatic broadcasts. 734 member species, she muttered to herself, 733 representatives who never shut up, and one empty seat that speaks volumes. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Confederation was a marvel of engineering and diplomacy. Constructed in the perfect center of the Milky Way, the massive dome stretched nearly 2 kilometers across, with concentric rings of ornate seats arranged by joining date. Each seat was meticulously designed to accommodate the wildly different physiologies of member species, from the methane-breathing Volpari to the silicon-based Krith collective. But there was one seat that had never known the weight of its intended occupant. Earth's seat. Standing out like a supernova in a dark nebula, the simple chair remained conspicuously empty for over 2 centuries. Made of polished obsidian and trimmed with gold, an element the humans apparently valued, it occupied prime position in the third ring, Section 7. The Earth had been granted membership 214 standard cycles ago, yet not once had a human representative graced the chamber with their presence. Rumors spread like a quantum virus through the Confederation. Some claimed humans were physically incapable of space travel. Others insisted they were too primitive to understand interstellar politics. The more sensational gossip suggested humans were shapeshifters who walked among them in disguise, or that they were so advanced they communicated telepathically from their homeworld. Lorka knew better than to believe corridor chatter, but even she found the situation puzzling. Every diplomatic overture to Earth received polite acknowledgement, yet no delegates ever arrived. Trade agreements were established but conducted through automated systems. The planet itself was classified as a death world, yet somehow maintained membership status. Her communication panel chimed, interrupting her thoughts. With a flick of her third right appendage, she accepted the call. Administrator Pax, your presence is requested in the High Council immediately, came the urgent voice of her assistant. What now, Brill? I'm busy preparing for the Andromeda Trade Summit. It's about Earth, Administrator. Their government has sent a message. They're sending someone. A human is finally coming to the Council. Lorka's scales shifted from their normal turquoise to a shocked white. In all her 60 years of service, she never thought she'd hear those words. Well, she said, trying to sound casual while her heart nodes pounded, I suppose we should prepare to welcome them. And perhaps find out why that seat has been gathering dust for 2 centuries. Little did she know that the answer would shake the Confederation to its very foundation. The Galactic Confederation had formed nearly 1,000 years ago when the 3 eldest spacefaring races, the Orcs, the Polunians, and the now extinct Tross, decided that burning each other's planets to cinders was less profitable than cooperation. What began as a simple non-aggression pact evolved into the sprawling bureaucratic nightmare that Lorka now helped manage. Earth had joined under unusual circumstances. No first contact protocol, no formal application process, just a sudden message in perfect galactic standard appearing simultaneously on every communication system across Confederate space. And we accept your invitation to join. Treaty terms acceptable. Earth thanks you. The fact that no invitation had ever been extended was the first red flag. The second was that nobody knew how humans had obtained the treaty document, which had only existed in the secure archives on Centauri Prime. Nevertheless, the Council voted to accept Earth as the 547th member, more out of curiosity than anything else. A delegation was dispatched to establish formal relations, but they returned with strange, conflicting reports. Earth was simultaneously described as a garden paradise and utterly uninhabitable. The scout ships detected advanced technology, yet observed pre-spaceflight societies. Most disturbing of all, 3 of the 12 delegates refused to speak of what they had witnessed, and one took her own life shortly after returning. Earth was classified as a death world shortly thereafter, the only inhabited planet with that designation. As news of the impending human arrival spread through the Confederation hub world of Nova Centralis, reactions varied wildly by species. The militant Orcs immediately doubled their security details, their barrel-shaped bodies bristling with ceremonial weapons that suddenly seemed very practical. The crystalline Zrell, who communicated through light and color patterns across their transparent bodies, flashed alarming shades of crimson among themselves. The amorphous Nubari representatives simply oozed away from the council chamber entirely, claiming urgent business elsewhere. "Everyone's losing their composure over nothing," said Ambassador Zrell Nubo, sliding into the seat beside Lorka at the administrative dining commons. His gelatinous face pods wobbled with what passed for amusement among the Trisarian people. "Humans aren't nearly as terrifying as the rumors suggest." Lorka's eye ridges raised in surprise. "You've met one?" "Oh yes, several actually. My third research vessel encountered a human outpost near the Perseus Arm about 30 cycles ago." He leaned in, his voice dropping. "Fascinating creatures. So small and soft-looking, yet." He trailed off, his face pods darkening with what Lorka recognized as discomfort or possibly fear. "Yet what?" she pressed. "Let's just say appearances are deceiving. Did you know they consist primarily of water? Actual liquid water, walking around, thinking thoughts. Can you imagine? A sentient being made mostly of solvent." Lorka scrolled through her datapad, pulling up Earth's official designation. "It says here Earth is classified as Hazard Category 9, extreme danger to non-native life. Atmospheric toxicity, dangerous wildlife, lethal pathogens, extreme gravitational stress, and weight. That can't be right, harmful electromagnetic radiation from their own star. How does anything survive there?" "That's the billion-credit question," Zrell said, his feeding appendages nervously tapping the table. "And why the Council granted them automatic membership, despite never sending an evaluation team." It was the great contradiction that had puzzled Confederation scholars for centuries. Earth had been approved for membership, given a seat at the highest table of galactic politics, yet simultaneously labeled as too dangerous to visit. The official records merely stated, "Special circumstances warrant special accommodations." "Do you think we should be worried about this human coming here?" Lorka asked. Zrell's entire body rippled in the Trisarian equivalent of nervous laughter. "Worried? No, terrified? Absolutely. The following 3 days on Nova Centralis could only be described as organized chaos." Lorka had never witnessed such frantic preparation for a single delegate's arrival, not even when the notoriously volatile Scrix Emperor had visited with his 1,000-strong entourage of venomous courtiers. Security Chief Graz Pal, a towering insectoid whose exoskeleton gleamed under the artificial lighting, had requisitioned enough weaponry to equip a small army. "Sonic disruptors?" Lorka questioned, reviewing the security manifest. "Quantum containment fields? Temporal stasis generators? Are we welcoming a diplomat or capturing a war criminal?" "With humans, it's better to over-prepare," Graz clicked through his mandibles. "I've received 17 different threat assessments from Confederation intelligence. Do you know what they all agree on? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Reports claimed humans could lift 10 times their body weight, or possibly manipulate gravity itself. Some insisted they could regenerate lost limbs, while others suggested they had redundant organs as backup systems. One particularly alarming bulletin warned that humans might secrete corrosive acids when threatened. The environmental team was no less panicked. Air composition was adjusted hourly based on conflicting data about human respiratory requirements. Temperature controls fluctuated wildly as technicians argued over whether humans preferred thermal conditions similar to ice planets or volcanic moons. "This is absurd," Lorka muttered, approving yet another requisition for specialized medical equipment. "We've dealt with thousands of different species without this level of hysteria." Curiosity drove her to access the central archives, using her administrative clearance to search for actual data rather than rumors. What she found disturbed her deeply. File after file marked classified detailed previous attempts to establish direct contact with Earth. Most ended with unexplained communications blackouts. Others contained fragmentary reports of ships returning with crews suffering from inexplicable psychological trauma. 3 separate military reconnaissance missions had disappeared entirely. One report from 118 cycles ago particularly caught her attention: a science vessel that had attempted to establish an orbital observation post around Earth. The mission log ended with a cryptic final transmission: "They know we're here. They've always known. Stars help us, they're coming aboard. Do not send rescue." A voice like grinding stone interrupted her research. "Finding anything interesting, Administrator Pax?" Admiral Vantek Dorn loomed in the doorway of the archive room, his granite-like skin etched with the ceremonial scars of the Bracken military elite. His 4 eyes, each a different shade of crimson, focused on her with uncomfortable intensity. "Admiral, I didn't realize you'd arrived for the summit already," Lorka said, quickly closing the classified files. "I came as soon as I heard about the human," he growled, his massive frame seeming too large for the delicate archive chairs as he sat opposite her. "The Council is making a catastrophic mistake allowing one here." "You sound like you speak from experience." Vantek's upper set of eyes narrowed while the lower pair darted to the corners of the room, checking for eavesdroppers. 73 cycles ago, I commanded a battlecruiser on a routine patrol near what we now know was the edge of human territory. We encountered a small vessel, barely armed, with a single life sign aboard. He paused, his rocky features hardening even further. "My second-in-command suggested we capture it for study." "What happened?" "I lost a crew of 300 that day." The human at Vantek's voice faltered, a reaction Lorka had never seen from the stoic admiral. "The official report says our antimatter containment failed in a tragic accident." "And the unofficial version?" "That human allowed itself to be captured, Administrator. It wanted aboard my ship." Lorka felt her scales ripple with unease. Surely one being couldn't. "The Council must cancel this visit," Vantek interrupted, rising suddenly. "I've submitted my formal protest. I suggest you prepare evacuation protocols for the station, just in case." Before Lorka could respond, her communication panel chimed urgently. "Administrator Pax, your presence is requested in Laboratory 7 immediately," came Brill's voice. "The Science Directorate has, questions about human biology that require administrative input." Laboratory 7 was in chaos when Lorka arrived. Dozens of scientists from various species huddled around display terminals, arguing vehemently. Chief Scientist Nevi Taller, her tentacle-like appendages waving in agitation, rushed over. "Administrator, thank the void you're here. We're attempting to prepare appropriate medical protocols for the human visitor, but the data is, frankly, impossible." "Impossible how?" "According to these readings from our long-range scans of Earth, humans should not be alive, let alone sentient," Nevi explained, guiding Lorka to the central holographic display. "They appear to be carbon-based, but their cells contain metals we'd consider toxic. Their DNA structure is both primitively simple and bafflingly complex." The display showed comparative anatomical diagrams of known sentient species alongside a human silhouette. "Look at this," continued Nevi, highlighting the human nervous system. "Their neural pathways suggest they process information sequentially rather than in parallel like most advanced species, yet somehow they've achieved technological parity with us." Another scientist, a hovering gas cloud named Reth, chimed in. "And their technology makes even less sense. We've detected everything from primitive combustion engines to what might be rudimentary quantum computing, all operating simultaneously. Some regions show energy signatures that our instruments can't even classify." It's as if they're deliberately presenting contradictory data, said a third scientist. Or, Lorka suggested, remembering Admiral Vantek's warning, as if we're seeing exactly what they want us to see. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. The preparation countdown timer on the wall continued its relentless advance. 3 days until the human arrived. 2 days before the human's scheduled arrival, Lorka found herself in the Confederation's military archives. Admiral Vantek's warning had triggered something in her memory, an old report she'd glimpsed years ago about a strategic assessment mission to Earth that had been abruptly classified. The archival VI hummed softly as it processed her request. Access denied. Files regarding Earth military expeditions require Alpha 9 clearance. Lorka's administrative codes were only Alpha 7. She hesitated only briefly before using the emergency override sequence, a serious breach of protocol that would certainly cost her position if discovered. The holographic display came to life, revealing hundreds of classified mission logs spanning nearly 2 centuries. Each bore the same designation, failed. Not incomplete or ongoing, but definitively failed. 13 separate military expeditions, she whispered to herself, scanning the dates, all with the same outcome. The mission parameters varied from simple reconnaissance to shows of force, but the results were eerily identical. In contact lost. Vessels vanished. In the rare cases where ships returned, the crews exhibited severe psychological trauma, unable or unwilling to describe what they'd encountered. More disturbing still were the cross-references to species that had publicly announced intentions to bring Earth under their control. The aggressive Morax hegemony had boasted about their planned conquest of Earth's resources shortly before their entire ruling council mysteriously disappeared. The Zrell Dominion, a race of apex predators known for subjugating lesser species, had dispatched a war fleet toward Earth's solar system 80 cycles ago. Neither the fleet nor the Zrell homeworld had been heard from since. Computer, show me any visual records of humans in combat scenarios, Lorka requested, her scales now a pale blue of deep concern. One record found. Security rating, ultra-restricted. The footage was grainy, captured by what appeared to be a surveillance system in some kind of arena or fighting pit. A massive Chronax warrior 3 meters tall, with armored hide and renowned as the physically strongest species in the known galaxy, stood facing a comparatively tiny pink-skinned figure that Lorka assumed must be human. The Chronax charged, its 6 muscular limbs propelling its multi-ton bulk forward with frightening speed. The human didn't move until the very last second, then simply sidestepped. What happened next defied Lorka's understanding of physics. The human's arm shot out, its hand gripping one of the Chronax's tusks, and somehow impossibly redirected the enormous creature's momentum. The Chronax warrior went flying, crashing into the arena wall with enough force to crack the reinforced material. Before the stunned Chronax could recover, the human approached casually, said something inaudible to the camera, and then placed what looked like 2 small digits against the massive warrior's neck. The Chronax immediately collapsed, either unconscious or dead. The footage ended abruptly. By the void, Lorka breathed, her limbs trembling slightly. Her research was interrupted by an urgent meeting summons. The council had convened an emergency session regarding the human visit, and her presence was required. The council chamber was in uproar when she arrived. Representatives shouted over one another, waving appendages in agitation. They must be artificial constructs, insisted Councillor Pret of the Mechanid Collective. No biological entity could survive on a world with Earth's radiation levels. Nonsense, countered Representative Quill of the gaseous Vaporians. Clearly they're energy beings using solid forms as temporary vessels. It's the only explanation for their contradictory biology. Perhaps they exist partially in another dimension, suggested another counselor, which would explain why our sensors cannot properly analyze them. Lorka spotted Zrell Nubo sitting quietly at the edge of the chamber, his gelatinous form unnaturally still. Remembering his earlier claim of having met humans, she made her way over to him. Ambassador Nubo, given your experience with humans, perhaps you could provide some clarity to the Council. Zrell's face pods darkened noticeably. I may have exaggerated the nature of our encounter. You claim to have met several humans. And we did, just not in the way I implied. His voice dropped to a whisper. We detected a small outpost on an uninhabited moon. Standard protocol for unknown installations, we sent a heavily armed team to investigate. 16 of my best security personnel. What happened? There was only one human there, Administrator. One. It welcomed our boarding party, offered refreshments, chatted pleasantly about stellar cartography. Zrell's body rippled with distress. Then one of my security officers attempted to seize the facility. Standard procedure, you understand. And deferred to... The human's demeanor changed. Not obviously, it still smiled, still spoke softly. But something shifted. My chief security officer, a veteran of 3 interspecies conflicts, began crying uncontrollably. 2 others turned their weapons on themselves. The rest simply froze. The human attacked them somehow. That's the thing, Administrator. It never moved, never threatened, never even raised its voice. It just said, and I'll never forget these words, that would be a mistake, friends. Let's remain friends, shall we? Zrell's entire form shuddered. My boarding team returned to the ship without any physical injuries, but none of them were ever the same. 3 had to be institutionalized. The rest resigned from service. He leaned closer. Administrator, I don't know what humans are, but they're not like us. Not like anything we've encountered before. Lorka felt a chill across her scales. And tomorrow, one of them will be here, among us. Arrival day dawned with a station-wide tension so thick Lorka swore she could taste it in the recycled air. Security personnel lined every corridor. Medical teams stood by with equipment designed to handle everything from radiation poisoning to biohazard containment. The docking bay had been evacuated except for essential personnel, all of whom wore protective gear that made them look like they were preparing for a toxic waste cleanup rather than a diplomatic reception. The human vessel has entered our space, announced the traffic control officer, his voice tight. It's not what we expected. Lorka rushed to the observation window. She'd anticipated an imposing warship or perhaps some incomprehensible alien design. Instead, a small, sleek shuttle approached, elegant but utterly unremarkable by Confederation standards. It could have been manufactured by any of a dozen member species. No unusual energy signatures, reported a technician. Standard propulsion systems, no weapons detected. That can't be right, muttered Admiral Vantek, who had insisted on personally overseeing security. Scan again. The shuttle docked with a gentle hiss of equalizing pressure. The assembled greeting committee, including representatives from 30 major species, armed guards trying to look non-threatening, and various administrative officials collectively held their breath as the airlock cycled. And then, anticlimactically, the human walked in. Lorka wasn't sure what she had expected, perhaps tentacles, glowing eyes, or at minimum an exoskeleton, but the being that stepped through the airlock looked almost disappointingly ordinary. Bipedal, symmetrical, covered in some kind of tailored fabric garment, with exposed patches of light brown skin on its face and hands. It was shorter than many species, perhaps 170 centimeters, with a tuft of dark curly material on its head. Its most distinctive feature was the curve of its mouth, turned upward in what Lorka recognized from xenobiology class as a smile, a supposedly friendly expression. Hi there. I'm Maya Blackwell, Earth's representative. The human's voice was melodious and utterly lacking in the existential dread everyone had anticipated. Sorry I'm a bit late. Traffic around the Orion Spur was terrible. She laughed, an oddly musical sound that somehow made several security officers lower their weapons unconsciously. Maya strode forward, seemingly oblivious to the tension, and extended a 5-digit appendage toward Lorka. "You must be Administrator Pax. Your welcome message was very kind. I hope I haven't caused too much trouble." Lorka hesitantly extended her upper right limb, allowing the human to grasp it in what her cultural database identified as a handshake. The human's grip was firm but gentle, its skin warm and dry. "No trouble at all," Lorka lied, acutely aware of the hundreds of staff members who had worked around the clock for 3 days preparing for this moment. "We're honored by your presence." "Wonderful. I've been looking forward to attending a council session for ages. Just never seemed to be the right time. You know how it is." Maya smiled again, her teeth white and remarkably non-threatening for an omnivorous species. Zrell Nubo had retreated to the farthest corner of the reception area, his gelatinous form nearly flattened against the wall in an apparent effort to make himself as inconspicuous as possible. Admiral Vantek, meanwhile, kept one hand on his disruptor, his 4 eyes never leaving the human. The procession to the council chamber was awkward. Maya chatted amiably about her journey, complimented the station's architecture, and asked thoughtful questions about various species' customs. She seemed utterly unaware or perhaps unconcerned that everyone around her was braced for catastrophe. By the time they reached the chamber, word had spread throughout the station. Every seat was filled, with additional observers crowding the upper galleries. A hushed silence fell as Maya Blackwell was escorted to Earth's long empty seat. She examined the obsidian chair with apparent approval. "Nice craftsmanship, though I would have been fine with something simpler." She settled into it comfortably, then looked around the chamber with bright, interested eyes. "So this is where all the decisions happen. Cozy." The council leader, a venerable Orcser named Tholak, whose scales had faded to gray with age, approached the central podium. His voice quavered slightly as he formally welcomed Earth to the council for the first time in 2 centuries. "Thank you for your kind words," Maya responded when invited to speak. She rose and approached the podium with an easy confidence. "It's truly a pleasure to be here among so many diverse and fascinating species. Earth has long admired the Galactic Confederation's commitment to cooperation and peace." Murmurs rippled through the assembly at this unexpectedly gracious opening. "I realize our absence has caused some confusion, perhaps even concern," Maya continued, her expression becoming more serious. "Today I'd like to clarify a few things about Earth and humanity's relationship with the broader galactic community." She paused, surveying the chamber with a gaze that suddenly seemed to see everything and everyone at once. "Firstly, we want to thank you for maintaining our seat all these years. It was a courtesy we appreciated, though perhaps unnecessary. You see, Earth has been aware of the Confederation since its inception, nearly 1,000 years ago." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. Maya waited patiently for the noise to subside before continuing. "In fact, humanity has been observing, and, when necessary, quietly protecting this galaxy for considerably longer than that." Admiral Vantek surged to his feet. "Protecting? From what?" Maya's smile returned, but something had changed in it, a hint of ancient wisdom behind her eyes that hadn't been visible before. "From threats you've never had to face precisely because we handled them, Admiral. From technologies that would have destroyed you before you understood their dangers. From certain entities that exist between the stars with appetites larger than worlds." Lorka felt her scales prickle with a sensation beyond fear, something closer to awe. "The empty seat you've maintained wasn't an honor you extended to us," Maya said softly, though her voice somehow carried to every corner of the massive chamber. "It was a courtesy we extended to you. A recognition of your Confederation's potential, a symbol of our hope that one day you would be ready for the truth." "And what truth is that?" asked Tholak, his ancient voice barely audible. Maya's eyes seemed to glow slightly, though Lorka couldn't be sure if it was just a trick of the light. "That you were never alone in this galaxy. That you have always been watched over. and that the time has come for humanity to step out of the shadows. The council chamber remained deathly silent as Maya Blackwell stood before them, her unassuming presence somehow filling the vast space more completely than any bombastic diplomat ever had. "What exactly are you saying?" Councillor Pritt finally asked, his mechanical voice modulator unable to hide his confusion. "That humans have been watching us?" "More than watching," Maya replied. "Guiding, protecting, occasionally intervening when absolutely necessary." She smiled warmly. "But mostly we've been hoping you would all continue to grow and thrive." Lorka found her voice. "You speak as if humans predate our civilizations." "We do," Maya said simply. "Humanity didn't evolve alongside your species. We were here first." She gestured broadly at the assembled representatives. "In fact, we seeded much of the life that eventually became all of you." The statement was so outrageous that several representatives laughed nervously, but their laughter died quickly as Maya continued. "Earth isn't a death world, Administrator Pax. It's the cradle world, the original template from which all compatible life in this galaxy emerged. The reason humans can survive its supposedly harsh conditions is simple. We evolved there. It shaped us, forged us in radiation and gravity and oxygen that seems toxic to you only because your worlds were terraformed to gentler specifications." "Impossible," snapped Admiral Vantek. "Our evolutionary records are incomplete," Maya finished for him. "Deliberately so. We removed certain markers, certain evidence. We wanted you all to develop your own cultures, your own identities, without the shadow of progenitors hanging over you." She began to walk slowly around the central podium, and Lorka noticed how every eye in the chamber tracked her movement with an almost hypnotic focus. "That mission your ancestors lost, Admiral? The one with the antimatter containment failure? That vessel was approaching a dormant void gate in ancient technology that, if accidentally activated, would have released entities your weapons couldn't even perceive, let alone fight. The human you captured wasn't attacking your crew. It was saving them, and billions of others, by ensuring that ship never reached its destination." Vantek's 4 eyes blinked in rapid succession, his rigid posture suddenly uncertain. "The Morax hegemony didn't mysteriously disappear after threatening Earth," Maya continued. "We relocated their leadership to a pleasant, uninhabited world where they could evolve beyond their aggressive tendencies without endangering others. They're doing quite well now, actually. Developed a fascinating artistic culture." She turned to Zrell, who flinched visibly. "And Ambassador Nubo, your encounter with that lonely researcher on the moon outpost. He wasn't using any psychic ability against your boarding party. He simply showed them, briefly, what lurks beyond the protective barriers humanity maintains around this galaxy. Your crew saw what we shield you from every day." Tholak, the ancient council leader, leaned heavily on his ceremonial staff. "If what you say is true, why reveal yourselves now? Why send a representative after centuries of absence?" Maya's expression softened. "Because you're ready, or nearly so. The Confederation has achieved something remarkable, hundreds of diverse species cooperating, building something greater than themselves. We're proud of you, actually." "You speak as if the Confederation itself was your creation," said Lorka, pieces suddenly clicking into place in her mind. Maya's smile widened. "Now you're getting it. Administrator. Those 3 founding species that decided to form an alliance rather than destroy each other? That moment of clarity didn't come from nowhere. The seemingly miraculous translation technology that allowed species with wildly different communication methods to suddenly understand each other? The mysterious benefactors who provided the initial plans for the Nova Centralis station." She spread her hands in a gesture that somehow encompassed the entire chamber, the entire station, the entire galactic community. "You've all been part of the longest-running social project in galactic history. The Confederation doesn't exist despite humanity. It exists because of us." Maya returned to Earth's obsidian seat and settled into it comfortably for the first time in 200 years. The seat has remained empty because we needed to stay in the background while you grew. But the nursery phase is over now. Threats are coming, threats that will require us to stand together. That's why I'm here. Her eyes swept across the chamber one more time, no longer merely human eyes, but windows into something ancient and vast. It's time for the children of Earth to finally meet their parents.